Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to Evergreen Garden and drop a comment below telling us what you're growing this season, because this channel exists for gardeners who want real results, not recycled advice. Now let's get straight to it, because what I'm about to share can quietly replace bags of fertilizer, rebuild tired soil, and improve yields year after year without extra work from you. Most gardeners spend their time feeding plants, but the smartest gardens are built by feeding the soil. And one of the most powerful soil builders has been forgotten, removed, or even treated like a weed for decades. This plant works underground while you sleep, fixing nitrogen, loosening compacted soil, protecting moisture, and feeding everything growing nearby. That plant is clover. Clover used to be intentionally included in lawns, vegetable plots, and orchards. Old seed mixes always contained it because farmers and gardeners understood its value. When synthetic fertilizers became cheap and chemical weed control took over, clover was rebranded as a problem plant simply because it didn't fit the new system. It was pushed out not because it was harmful, but because it reduced the need to buy inputs. What was lost in the process was a living fertilizer factory that runs 24 hours a day. Clover doesn't just add nutrients once like compost or manure. It actively pulls nitrogen from the air and stores it in the soil through a natural partnership with beneficial bacteria on its roots. Clover belongs to the legume family, and legumes have a unique ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen. Tiny bacteria called rhizobia live in nodules on clover roots. These bacteria capture nitrogen from the air in the soil and convert it into a plant-available form. The clover uses what it needs, and the rest becomes available to neighboring plants through root exudates, leaf drop, and decomposition. A healthy stand of clover can fix between 50 and 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre per year, depending on species and growing conditions. Scaled down to a home garden, even a small patch between beds can contribute the equivalent of several applications of organic nitrogen fertilizer annually without burning plants or leaching away. White clover is the most versatile option for vegetable gardens, orchards, and raised beds because it stays low and tolerates foot traffic. It works exceptionally well between rows, around fruit trees, and along pathways. Red clover grows taller and is better suited for larger plots or areas you plan to cut and drop for mulch. Crimson clover is ideal as a seasonal cover crop because it grows quickly and produces large amounts of biomass. For most backyard gardeners, white clover seeded at a rate of about £1 per 1,000 square feet is enough to establish a living fertilizer layer without overwhelming other plants. If overseeding into existing beds, half that amount is usually sufficient. Nitrogen is only part of the story. Clover roots penetrate compacted soil, creating channels that improve water infiltration and aeration. When those roots die back, they leave organic matter behind, feeding soil microbes and increasing long-term fertility. Clover also acts as a living mulch, shading the soil surface and reducing moisture loss during hot weather. In practical terms, gardeners who integrate clover often notice fewer weeds, better moisture retention, and healthier earthworm activity within a single season. Over time, soil becomes darker, looser, and easier to work without constant amendments. You don't need to tear up your garden to use clover. The simplest approach is overseeding. Lightly rake bare or thin areas between crops, broadcast seed, and water gently for the first week. Clover germinates quickly and establishes shallow roots that won't compete aggressively with vegetables. Between established plants like tomatoes or peppers, clover can be allowed to grow until it reaches about 4 to 6 inches tall. At that point, you can cut it back and leave the clippings on the soil surface. This cut-and-drop method releases nitrogen gradually while maintaining ground cover. For fruit trees, sow clover in a ring starting about 1 foot from the trunk and extending to the drip line. This improves nutrient cycling while reducing grass competition, especially during dry periods. Clover works best when managed, not ignored. Occasional cutting encourages root growth and nitrogen release. If allowed to flower heavily, it will still benefit pollinators, but cutting before full bloom directs more energy underground. If you're preparing a bed for heavy feeders like corn or brassicas, allow clover to grow for several weeks, then cut it down and lightly incorporate the top growth into the first 2 inches of soil. This can supply a measurable nitrogen boost. A rough ratio to follow is allowing 1 square meter of dense clover growth to support 1 to 2 heavy-feeding plants for a season when combined with compost. Unlike synthetic fertilizers, clover does not spike nutrient levels or damage soil biology. It feeds gradually in sync with plant demand. It also buffers against nutrient loss during heavy rains by holding nitrogen in organic form rather than letting it wash away. For gardeners dealing with poor soil, rising fertilizer costs, or inconsistent yields, clover offers a long-term solution rather than a short-term fix. It turns empty space into productivity and transforms the soil itself into an ally. Clover is not a shortcut. It's a system builder. It rewards patience with resilience, improves soil season after season, and reduces dependency on external inputs. Gardens that use clover consistently are more drought-tolerant, biologically active, and productive over time. If you've been feeding plants but not rebuilding soil, this one change can shift everything. The most productive gardens aren't worked harder. They're designed smarter. If this guide helped you rethink how fertility works in your garden, subscribe to Evergreen Garden for more serious, practical, growing knowledge. Share this with a fellow gardener who's still buying nitrogen in a bag, and leave a comment telling us whether you've used clover before or plan to start this season.